Hey guys, Chrono here. So today we're going to go through how to use Modkit really quickly. First I'm going to point out that this is a brand new project, brand new scene. I don't have anything in here. This is just completely from stock. I moved the camera around a little bit just because I felt like I was lagging, but I'm not, so whatever. First things first, I'm going to delete main camera because we don't use it. It's never used in custom apps. I'm going to go to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package. I'm going to import the WM Custom Apps version 1.5, import everything. I'm going to import this one first because it does have a couple of source files for my package, specifically the door texture. I'm looking about replacing that, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I'm going to do the same thing again, Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, Modkit.Unity Package, import everything. It's going to do its thing for a minute, and we have both files in our project folder. And that's all we really need. If you want to get extra stuff from the asset store, I'm going to go over that later, but for right now, let's go through what we just imported, because seriously, what are these folders? Okay, Modkit contains a materials folder, a meshes folder, and a prefabs folder. The materials folder holds all of the used materials for my meshes, so a debug that I use internally for when I need to test things, the door material, which you can see uses the normal Warmerise door texture. That's the one I'm trying to change, and that's why I recommend that you import this first. You don't necessarily have to, but I recommend it. Material floor is just red, roof is blue, and walls are green. So that's the materials folder. We're going to go through how to change all these correctly later, but for right now, that's the default. In the meshes folder, you'll notice there's another folder called materials. I can't figure out why this keeps showing up because none of my meshes use Lambert 1, so if that shows up for you, delete it. Nobody cares. It's fine. Okay, so in here we have all of the rooms that I have made for Modkit. I've got a bunch of corners, some doors, some frames, some hallways, some ramps, a bunch of rooms, and a T-junction. All of these meshes are what you're going to be placing in the scene, and this folder is where we're going to be spending most of our time when making maps. So, next after that is Prefabs, and this contains Doors Alternate, which is a door, a frame, and this little red block. If you're familiar with Warmerise custom maps, this is an animated door. This door works completely. What we're going to do is drop this into all points, but we'll get into that later. So that's the stuff that comes with Modkit. Let's go through the WM custom app stuff really quickly just so that we can see what's in there. So we have a models, a prefabs, a scripts, and a tutorials folder. In the models folder, we have a bunch of materials, and that's everything that you see in the game needs a material and a texture. So go ahead and minimize that. The textures are the sources for all the materials. That's fine. We've got the ball mode map, which is cool. We've got a ladder, which is cool, I guess. And we've got the default door, which is also cool. We're not going to use any of these in this tutorial, but just know that they are there. In the prefabs folder, you've got all points. We are going to use this. This is how you make custom maps. This all points prefab needs to be in your scene hierarchy somewhere. We'll get to that when we get to that. This is doors. This goes inside of all points, which goes inside of your hierarchy, and it allows you to use animated doors. We're not going to use this one, but if you remember from a second ago, we are going to use this. We're going to put it inside of all points. Again, we'll get to that later. The scripts folder has nothing we need in it. This is all stuff for when you are exporting. Tutorials is a bunch of PDFs, and I highly recommend you read these ones, especially this one if you're just getting started. This has everything that you need to make a custom map. All the required shaders, or not required shaders, but supported shaders, supported components, how to make skyboxes, how to move stuff around. You know, this is gonna be your Bible basically for making custom maps the first time. So if you ever have a question, check here first because the answer's probably in here. Right, so changelog is just all the changes that have been made to the WM Custom Apps package. We don't care about that because we've got the most recent version. So let's get started building maps, shall we? Okay, so the very first thing you need to know is that my Modkit relies on this grid. You see this grid of white on the gray background? My kit relies on all of these parts aligning perfectly to this grid, which means that it has to have whole numbers. So if I drag this corner large smooth into the scene, I want it to line up with this grid. And you can see I didn't do a very good job because it's sunk down and it's off. If you look at the transform position, you can see that each position has decimal points. And if it has a decimal point, then that means it will not snap to any other mesh. So what I'm going to do instead is do this the easy way. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go with corner large smooth. I'm going to drag it into the hierarchy instead of the scene. By dragging it into the hierarchy, it sets its position to 0, 0, 0 by default, which is a whole number. There's no decimal points on that, which means all of my stuff will snap to it, which is exactly what we want. So now I'm going to do things wrong just to show you a quick way to fix it. I'm going to take ramp double. And I'm just going to put it, right there. Right there, that's fine. Looking at the looking at the transform position, we have decimal points, which means this will not work. How do we fix that? Well, we could type -10, 2, we could type, I think that rounds up to 18, and then that's about where it was, but rounded to whole numbers. Or, what we could do instead, is we can, with this mesh selected, we can hit edit and then snap settings, and it'll pull up this new snap settings window, and then you can hit the snap all axes button. So watch this position value, all three of them, watch them. If I hit this button, it snaps them all to the nearest value, which makes them whole numbers. Okay? So that's how you fix a mesh that hasn't been placed properly. Whoops, sorry about that. That's how you fix a mesh that hasn't been placed properly. But how do you move stuff around accurately? Because if you're dragging it into position and you get it where you want it to be closely, and then you have to hit snap all axes, but then it puts it in the wrong spot, so you need to move it again and then snap it, and that's just a hassle. What if you could move things by exactly 1 unit at a time? Well, you can, and there's 2 ways to do this. The first is to get a third-party tool from the asset store called ProGrids. ProGrids allows you to automatically snap to an axis of any size, and if you set the axis size to 1, then it will snap to my grid perfectly, right? This was designed to use ProGrids, but ProGrids actually doesn't run on my installation of Unity for whatever reason. It makes it so that I can't move my camera around like this, which I do a lot. So I can't have that. I need to use it. So instead, the workaround, and you don't need to install any extra tools for this, is you can hold down your control key, or command if you're on a Mac, and you can drag in any axis as if you were moving normally, and it will snap in 1 unit increments. So watch the position transform as I'm moving this around in 2 axes. You can see that even though I'm moving it around and I'm not really caring about where I'm putting it, it's always staying at a whole number. So if I place it right there where it lines up on this edge with this other corner, you can see that it landed on a whole number, and that's exactly what I want. So I can press E to bring up my rotation tool to get it to sort of fit in the correct spot. I'm going to hold down Control again to get it to snap to regular rotation angles, 15 degrees if you're curious. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees so that it fits perfectly against the side of this corner. And this right here is what I designed this kit for. All of my parts snap together perfectly in a modular fashion so that it makes it super easy to build maps quickly. So I want to talk about something really quick, and that is, by default, Unity will pick the center of every mesh for its pivot point. If you rotate it around the center point, then it'll spin sort of, this side will spin this way and this side will spin this way. But right now, it's rotating just around this point down here, so the whole thing is rotating this way. Why is that? Well, that's because I'm in what's called pivot mode. In Maya, the program I use to make all these things, I have defined a manual pivot. I have said the center of this object isn't over here, it's actually over here, and that's so that we avoid this problem. By default, this is where Unity wants to put this pivot point, and if I'd rotate it, even in the normal 15-degree angles, I'm holding Control while I'm rotating, you can see that if I rotate it to weird angles like 45, the position actually changes to have a decimal point, and we can't have that because it'll no longer snap. So you could, if you wanted to, snap all axes, which would put it right there, but instead, what you can do is press the center button. Actually, I'm going to undo one more time. You can press the center button to switch it to pivot mode. And then if I rotate it, there are no problems with the position no matter where I rotate this thing at all. And that's true for all of my meshes. So when you're using Modkit, I highly recommend you're in pivot mode, because then the position transform cannot change due to rotation. It can only change when you move it like you're intending to. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's go ahead and add a small room onto the end of this hallway. And while I'm setting this up, I'm going to show you a cool little trick that I figured out while I was making this. If you switch this to perspective, or sorry, if you switch it to ISO instead of perspective, and then you press this Y, you get a top-down view of your map. If you press the middle mouse button and move your mouse around, you can drag the view around. So I can hold Control while clicking, and then I can drag this over here, line it up. So now it's lined up on these axes, and then if I press X, I can now line it up on the vertical axis, just like that. So now, if I switch back into perspective, this thing is now perfectly aligned to the hallway, even though it's up a couple of blocks, right? It perfectly snaps with no seams, no issues, no nothing. It's exactly the way maps are designed to be made. Right. So now we've got another problem. This room has 3 open doors. And we don't want players to be able to like walk out the side and then fall to their death, right? So we want actual doors, and we want 2 types of doors. We want doors that open and doors that do not open. And my kit has both of these. So in order to get working doors, which are probably the easier of the two, we're going to go into the Warmerise Custom Maps folder. We're going to go into the Prefabs folder. We're going to grab all points. We're going to put it up here. I like to keep it at the top of my map just so that it's always, you know, it's always easily accessible. But you can put it wherever in the hierarchy you want, just so long as it's at the root. It's not a child of anything else. So I'm going to open up all points. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. I'm going to ignore it. I don't care yet. I'm going to go into my Prefabs folder. So this is Modkit, Prefabs. I'm going to grab Doors Alternate. This comes with a frame and it comes with a door. So we're going to drag Doors Alternate underneath all points. So it's now a child of all points. And you can see it showed up over here. So your first reaction might be, well, let's just place the door over there. Let's go. Let's do it. And you'd actually be wrong. Doors Alternate is sort of a parent folder. It's actually empty. It's just a point in space. Custom Door actually contains all the stuff needed to make the door work. So I don't want to move around Doors Alternate. I want to move around Custom Door. So let's do that. Let's move Custom Door over here. We're going to put it right about here. That almost lines up. We almost got that. We're going to rotate it 90 degrees. We're holding Control to get exactly 15-degree increments. And you can see that the door is now fully flush with the wall. There's I think there's about a half a centimeter there. I'll fix that. That's fine. But I don't like it like this because the door sort of like, the frame sticks into the room, and I don't like that always. So what I'm going to do instead of having it stick into the room is I'm going to grab Custom Door, and I'm going to move it out 1 unit. Perfect. Okay. So now let's show you guys a really, really cool shortcut. So I'm going to click this. And you can see that the transform for this, or the tool handle for this door is all the way over there. It's not in the center. Why? That's because when we click this, it actually selects Doors Alternate. We don't want Doors Alternate. We want Custom Door because that's the door. This is the folder for the door. So let's grab the door and we're going to press Control D. Command D if you're on a Mac. And then we're going to move this out of the way. You can see we have 2 doors. Control D is the duplicate command. So if I press Control D again on this, I've created a 3rd door. That shortcut is really, really handy when you're working with modular designs like this. So if I want another corner to go this way, I can press Control D to duplicate. I can take this corner. I can put it probably there-ish. I can rotate it. Whoops, that's wrong. Let's see. There we go. Rotate it 90 degrees. Oh, look at that. I nailed it, I think. Yeah, I nailed it. Cool. So this snaps perfectly, and we didn't have to like go in here and find corner large smooth and drag it into the thing. We just pressed Control D to duplicate, and it just worked. Control D to duplicate, move it where you want it to be roughly. I think I want it actually over here. And then rotate it 90 degrees. And I missed a little bit, but that's fine. We can just move it into position. And that's so much faster than picking a new thing every single time. So we don't need this 3rd door. So we're going to go into Doors Alternate. We're going to select Custom Door 2 because that's the one we don't want. We're going to delete it. We're going to grab Custom Door 1, which is the first duplicate we made, and we're going to drag it, holding Control to keep it in 1 unit increments all the way over there so that it snaps perfectly flush against the inside of this door. And both of these doors are animated. If a player steps inside this green box, the door will slide up in the direction of the hinge. If you want to move the hinge, there's more information for that in the tutorials folder under door tutorial. There's a lot of good information in there. I highly recommend you check it out if you want to change the way your doors perform. Right, so with that out of the way, go back to Modkit. Now I want this 3rd door to be inactive because we've still got a hole here, but I don't want this door to go anywhere because the map goes this way and this way, let's just say. So how do we make an inactive door? Well, we're going to minimize all points so that we can see what we're doing. We're going to grab Door Frame, put it in the hierarchy. We're going to grab Door Custom, put it in the hierarchy. We're going to press F to focus on them. And they're sort of both inside the map itself. So we're going to move this out of the way. I just shift click to select both. I'm going to move it out of the way just so we can see what we're doing. You can see that these 2 things are Z fighting because they both end at exactly that point in space. So what we're going to do is grab Door Custom. We're going to move it over 1 so that they aren't fighting at all. So we're going to grab both of these 2 things. We're going to drag them over here. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this in sort of a really bad way, and I want you guys to sort of try and figure out what I did wrong. So let's grab door custom, door frame, and let's do that. Oh, it only grabbed door custom. I need door frame too. Okay, so what did I do wrong? Well, I dragged it directly into the scene view, so now all of its position transforms have decimal places. What's the fix for that? Again, the snap settings window under edit snap settings, hit the snap all axes button, and it goes back to regular numbers. Or not regular numbers, but whole numbers. So then I can select door custom because it's also wrong. Snap all axes, it's now correct. Press W to bring up the move tool, hold control to move it into place. Shift click this door frame to get them both aligned. And I just realized I made a mistake, but that's fine, we'll fix it in a second. We're going to move the frame into position, then move the door back into position because rotating it broke it. And you can see it lines up, and it looks just like the other doors, except this one doesn't have a hinge on it, it doesn't fit in all points, so it's just a solid object, it doesn't have any animation or anything like that. And I'm going to have this one sticky into the room just so that there's some clear distinction. You can see that this one doesn't work, but these two do. So, that's really annoying. Having to do that every single time, that's really annoying. So, let's go ahead, you and I, make a prefab. And to make a prefab, the first thing we're going to do is create an empty game object. Now, a game object, an empty one rather, is just a point in space. You can see there's nothing there. It is just a point that has a position, it has a rotation, it has a scale. What we're going to do is we're going to reset this position back to 0. I just click the little gear, hit reset, and that resets its position and rotation all to 0 and its scale to 1. So it's now at the center of the world, sort of inside the corner of this thing right here, which is fine. It doesn't matter. So this game object, I'm going to call doors inactive. No. Yeah. Doors inactive. So this is going to be sort of a parent to door frame and door custom. So I'm going to grab both of these. I'm going to drag them to be children of doors inactive. So it now acts as a folder. If I go in here, they're not there, which is fine, because these guys are off 12 units in that direction, 7 units in another direction. They're off somewhere doing something, who knows. So we're going to reset both of these. I'm going to shift click, I'm going to hit the gear, and then reset. Okay, so now we need to fix this door again because it's off by 1 unit, but now it's correct. So then, to make a prefab, you take this doors inactive parent, you drag it into the prefabs folder. And you can put this anywhere, so long as it goes into your project view, it'll be saved as a prefab, but I like to organize all my prefabs into the prefab folder. So, if I now click doors inactive and I delete it, it doesn't matter because it's still in the prefabs folder right here. This is the doors inactive. So, we're going to place doors inactive right here. And you can see it actually makes, even if I do it wrong, it makes it much easier to fix. So I'm going to place this right here. I'm going to do it wrong again. I'm going to place it directly in the scene view. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and then I'm going to eyeball its position. That's probably close enough. And then I'm going to hit snap all axes. It converts all my positions to whole numbers and makes it snap perfectly in the scene, no problem. And if I want more inactive doors, I can just take this doors inactive prefab, and I can just throw more in the scene anywhere I want, you know? So if I could even, you know, Control D to duplicate, move this guy over here. Control D over here. Grab another doors inactive. Put it right there. Prefabs are great, and if you're making big, complicated maps, you should use them a lot. So let's get rid of those those 4 rather. We don't need them. Let's get rid of, or not get rid of, but minimize things so that we can see what we're looking at, because my hierarchies tend to get pretty complicated pretty quickly. Right on. So the next thing that we need to do is assign textures, because right now we have green, blue, and if we go down to the bottom, all of my floors are red, and that's really bad. So let's make these actual textures. And to do this, I'm going to steal Max's textures. I highly recommend you find your own textures somewhere else, but for right now, just to prove a point, I'm going to steal Max's. So in the materials folder, I have material door, material roof, material walls, and material floor. I think I said one of those twice, but it's fine. In here, you can change the texture by clicking this little texture button. Press select, find the texture you want. I want wall texture 3. No, I don't. All of these look bad. Fine, wall texture 3 it is. And you can see if I go down underneath, I have changed the floor to wall texture 3. But it looks terrible. First of all, it's red. Why is that? That's because the main color is still set to red. In order to change it to something reasonable, we have to get rid of this main color. We have to make it so that there is no color. It is just white. So we can either click this dot and drag it over in the corner, or we can grab this S, which stands for saturation. We can drag it all the way down to 0, and that changes it to its default color. So you can see this texture now looks correct in the material. The other problem that we have is I can't see anything through all points. The other problem that we have is that this texture is taking up the entirety of this mesh. It's huge. We want this texture to repeat a little bit so that it looks more dense than it is. It's also kind of low resolution, so we can combat this by going into the tiling option. So let's go ahead and set this to 5. 5 tiling. That's pretty good. It looks a little better. This probably wasn't the best texture to use on the floor, but cranking it up to 5 worked pretty well. So now let's crank this up to 20, because 5 was good, so 20 must be better. And you can see that in some ways it helped because it kind of made this tile texture, but there's a lot of repetition. If this weren't like a regular tile pattern, it would look pretty nasty. And to prove that, let's go ahead and select energy wall texture. You can see that these patterns repeat, and you can see every single instance of the texture repeating. So we don't want it to go up to 20. 5 is probably fine for this mesh, and it looks okay. Right, so we can do the exact same thing with the wall texture. So let's go ahead and do that. So if we go over to Material Walls, before we even assign a texture, I'm going to make this white. I'm going to drag this dot. I'm going to move it over so that the saturation is 0. Close this window. Grab a texture. What do I feel like for a texture? How about concrete floor? Yeah, that looks pretty good. So concrete floor, again, we're going to want to up the tiling. I'm going to go up to 6 on this one because I'm feeling ambitious. 6 looks pretty good. Might go up to 7, might leave it at 6. No, 6 looks pretty good. It's got a good pixel density, so it's not too low resolution, but it also doesn't look like it repeats multiple times along the wall. So again, you would do the same thing for the roof material as well. And that actually is pretty much it, with one exception. This map is pretty barren. So what I would do if I were making a map is I would look at the asset store. Because people on the asset store have released a lot of really cool stuff. Like this rocks pack is pretty cool. There's a battle royale sort of wasteland looking poly pack. There's like a nature starter kit. That's cool. So like trees and stuff. Simple town, low poly rocks, that's all cool. So what you can do is you can take all of these assets, you can import these packages, and you can put them into your scene. Most people, in my experience, when they find the asset store and they start using it, is that they take stuff from the asset store and they just sort of upload it as their own map. So if this has like a demo scene just to show off what the pack can do, then they'll take that demo scene and they'll just upload it as its own custom map. And that's not cool. That's not creative. It's not fun. It doesn't. It's really low effort, and it's kind of scummy. I highly recommend getting stuff like, if you want this dungeons pack, you can use like torches on the wall, or you can use this castle wall, or other things that are in there to increase the visual fidelity of your own map, right? You can put all those things into your own custom designed map, and you can make it look really cool. So there's nothing wrong with using the assets on the asset store, but try to be original with it, Don't just steal other people's stuff and upload it as your own, Be creative with it. That's why I created this kit, is to make people, to give people a tool, rather, to sort of design their own layouts a little bit better so that they can, add in some rocks. Maybe you want rocks poking through the walls a little bit so it looks like you're underground and like it's collapsing a little bit, So use your imagination, have fun with this thing. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the cool stuff you guys can come up with, and I'm always happy to answer questions. If you can find me on Discord, on Warmerise, on the forums, wherever, I'm always happy to answer questions about Modkit, about making custom maps, anything you have a question about. Feel free to ask, and if you've got ideas for this kit, also hit me up. Post on the forum. I will make a forum topic for this. You're probably watching it from there, actually. And feel free to post about, what you've made, what you like, what you don't, and I'll be sure to read every single comment. So, yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope that this kit is useful to you, and I hope that you enjoy it. I am really hopeful that you guys get a lot of use out of this, because I am planning a lot more in terms of expansion packs. I'm calling them DLC packs. I've got like a moon one planned, an underwater one. I've got canyons planned at some point. I need to figure out how I'm going to do that, so that'll probably come later. But all of that stuff will be compatible with what's in Modkit right now. So if you learn Modkit, then you'll be able to use all of my future DLCs for it, and hopefully those are a lot cooler than this. This was sort of a proof of concept But I think it turned out really cool, and I think there's a lot of good uses for it even in this prototype phase. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys can do with it, and I'm looking forward to hearing all of your feedback. So again, thank you guys very much for listening. I hope this was helpful. Have fun making maps. Take care, everybody.